Hi everyone who's tuned in to watch my channel. If this is your first time watching and you like what you see, please go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, that would help me out tons. Well, today I'm going to show you one of the easiest things that there is to do in woodworking, but honestly one of those things that a lot of people don't think about very much, and that's how, when you have lots of boards and you need to glue them up and to make like one big board, how do you do that and make sure that the wood is going to stay as flat as possible? So stay tuned, watch the whole video, and maybe you'll learn something. I want to show you now my process for going through and gluing up a panel. So what I have here behind me is a whole bunch of hickory. This hickory was cut when I still had my sawmill. If you haven't watched my sawmilling videos, please go back and watch some of those. You might enjoy them. And we cut this hickory tree for a customer, and they just need some simple flat panels glued up for another project that they're going to be working on. So I'm doing the easy work, and then they'll go ahead and cut them and finish them and all that once they get the panels. Believe it or not, one of the hardest things to do with wood is to get it to conform to our standards. That is, wood naturally doesn't want to be flat, and over time any wood usually isn't. And this is because most wood is flat sawn, and so grain direction and all that plays into it. And of course this video is mostly going to be about how do we deal with different grain direction and so forth and so on, and make sure that we're getting it right. Now I want to show you a piece that I glued up, which is from some of my guitar making stuff that I do, and show you some of the exaggeration of what can happen with wood. Okay, this is a piece of mahogany, and it looks very flat probably when you see it this way. You can probably see some of the bend that has occurred in this piece of wood over time. It's kind of doing this kind of a thing to it, a little bow. Now, believe it or not, that's actually what you want in a table when you glue it up. I'm not talking about that you want it to be bowed all crazy, but what I'm saying is that if all the wood was going the same way, what you would get is this big swooping bow like this, or one, the other way of course. But what we want is we want to line up the grain direction of the wood so that it does something more like this, almost like a wave. Now if your wood is kiln dried and it's good, and you've done a good job preparing it and gluing it and everything like that, that tabletop will look as flat as a pancake for many, many years. But of course, I just want to show you an exaggeration of why it is what we do. We're trying to avoid this kind of a situation. If the wood's going to move, we want it to do something more like that. So having said that, I want to describe the three different things that you have to look at when you're looking at a new piece of wood and how to surface it. The first is what we call flatness, the second is what we call straightness, and the third is what we call twist. And so think of it this way. You have flatness, right? You have straightness, and then you have twist. And so the board moves from one end to the other like this. Let me see if I can get some shots to show you what I'm looking about in this hickory behind me. Okay, so first of all, flatness. So we're looking this way. We can see that it's not super flat. As a matter of fact, it has a dip right about there. It's kind of heavy, so I'm trying to do my best. Next thing we do is we turn it on its side, and we look for straightness. Now this board is pretty straight, seeing as how, this is a 10-foot long piece of hickory. But it does have just a slight, like it's going that way a little bit if you look at it. But that's a pretty straight board. And the last thing we look at is similar to the way we'd set it up for flatness, but we look at it this way. We just sort of examine it to see if there's any twist. Now this one does have a little bit of twist, which is kind of twisting that way a little, but it's really not too bad. So what I'm about to say to you might seem very, very obvious, but hey, this is what YouTube is for, right? It's the place where people will come to learn information, to learn new things. And if you've been woodworking a long time, what I'm about to say is not going to be a big shocker. But if you're getting into it, and this is brand new to you, I understand that some of these things that you learn can be like life-changing, So here's what I'm going to say that's so surprising, right? If you are trying to get a certain dimension, a thickness out of your wood, you're joining it, you're planing it, you're doing all that with it. If you're trying to get a certain thickness out of your wood, like say you have 1 inch thick rough lumber, let's say, and you want to get it down to 3/4 of an inch thick. Well, what do you have to do then? You have to remove 1/4 inch of material. So that's all that you have to work with is 1/4 inch of material. So if a piece of wood that you're looking at, like say you want to make something 8 feet long, and that piece of wood is bowed over like this, like by 1/2 inch, you can't get that flat with that amount of variance, because you'd have 1/2 inch on the bottom and 1/2 inch on the top. By the time you planed it all away and everything, you'd have nothing left. or you'd get it so thin where it would basically be useless for what you're trying to work with it. And so some pieces that are really long for certain projects, if you have a shorter project and you have a board that has a lot of curve in it, you can cut the board in half and basically half whatever is happening on it. And some boards are straight for a distance and then they curve. You know, so this is sort of part of that beginning of the craft of woodworking, of what a person has to learn and be perceptive to right at the beginning. I always say that woodworkers are probably some of the most perceptive people that there are, because we're always looking for all of these little differences, you know, and things that are constantly occurring. And even after you join it and plane it, it can still move. That's why some woodworkers recommend, and I definitely believe this as well, that what you do first is you join it and you plane it to close to where you want to be, and then you give it a day or two to sit and see what happens with it, and then you might do it again. Again, as you learn, you'll see some species do this more than others. But in terms of flatness, straightness, and twist, those are the first things that you have to look at. All right, so what I'm gonna do is, I have a project here that requires some of these to be longer for one part of what they're working on, and then some of them to be shorter. So I'm gonna go through and select the ones that I need to cut in half. In other words, the ones that are bowed a little bit more. I'm gonna find the longest, straightest ones I can for the longer pieces that they need. And guess what? I'm gonna save us the boredom and do a little bit of magic so that we don't have to watch me do all of that. One more quick word about this. I am assuming that all the wood that you're getting is kiln dried. As a guy who has done sawmilling for a living, I do recognize that there are not dried wood and dried wood. I'm talking about, for the best results possible, you need kiln dried wood. That is 6 to 8% moisture content, preferably in the wood, to be able to work it effectively. Okay, enough of that. All right, here we go. And just like that, hold on. See, I do wear ear protection, folks. All of you that keep bugging me about ear protection on my videos, I wear it. I wear earplugs, you see? There they are. And eye protection. I'm a very safe guy. So here we go. This is the magic that has just happened. What you saw in just like a second or two that just happened there was probably, you know, about an hour elapsed time combined of going through and picking and choosing the boards and cutting the ends to length and setting them through the joiner and the planer and edging them and getting them all to size and everything like that. So this is all good to go. Let's look at the before and after of this wood. I think that's always kind of cool to look at. As you can clearly see, here's the nice, flat, jointed and plane board. Here's the rough stuff before. And I love hickory because of this contrasting color that it gives you. It's really the only wood like this that looks like this. Good utilitarian wood. It is more difficult to work with, but it's worth it. And it smells great also. I just noticed in the video camera, I was looking at my eye and it looks like I've got a cut or something on my face, but that's not actually a cut. I got some new safety glasses. I'm always in the hunt for different safety glasses, and you know, I find ones I like and I stay with them forever until they break. But anyhow, that's not a cut. That's just my glasses, my new glasses that are putting a mark on my face. So now I want to talk about what is the most important part of making a panel or glue up. Now, this is going to apply with all of woodworking across the board. So whether you're making a cutting board, or you're making a tabletop, or you're making an end tabletop, or you're making an island for your kitchen or something like that, no matter what it is, if you are making a flat piece of wood out of different pieces of wood and you're gluing them together, what I'm about to share with you now is the most important thing that you need to know. Are you ready? What you see here is 4 different pieces of wood, okay? Now what do you notice about this? Well, if we look at one of these boards, we see that the grain rings, right? The rings of the wood are going a certain direction. Now this is kind of interesting because this was cut closer to the center of the log, which means that this portion here is technically quarter sawn. From there to there is quarter sawn, and technically from about there on is flat sawn. And so what that tells me is that these boards are going to be pretty stable. but it also tells me that I have different grain directions going on. Now, if the wood is going this way, when that wood decides to move with whatever it's going to do, instead of curving like this, it's actually going to curve like that. Interesting, isn't it? So that if you had all of your pieces like this glued up in the same way, your panel, if it moves, is going to move like this. So what we want to do is to alternate that grain and basically flip the board and go every other board, changing the grain direction from this to that and from this to that. Let me show you what I mean. Let's look at this panel now. It's not glued up yet. We're just getting it ready to glue. These rings are going this way, and that kind of a swooping motion. The next board, they're going up this way. See? The next board is going this way. And likewise, the last one is going that way. Now the other thing I've done, if you can see, is that I've actually matched the sapwoods and looked at the boards to make sure that like the worst knots and stuff, the things that will be seen from the top, are underneath. So we're looking for several things when we do a panel glue up. We're looking for, first of all, the grain direction is the most important thing that there can be. Then secondly, believe it or not, it's not the appearance. The grain direction is the most important thing. Then you deal with the wood that you have after that. Now this is going to look like one continuous piece of wood because of all of the different matching of the sapwood and the heartwood of the hickory. This is the one big panel that I'm going to be making, and so it's really important to me that I get all of this looking like one piece of wood going across. It's a little bit oversized, and of course we do that on purpose when we do a panel glue up so that we can size it afterwards, which is as simple as just cutting one edge off, and usually you'll pick the ugliest edge if there is one, and then you'll cut that edge off, and then you'll be good to go. So this is going to be one nice big panel. The next thing I'm going to do, and I don't really feel like there's too much need to show you the rest of this, I'll show you the finished product after we've done it, but I'm going to go through and I'm going to put some domino joints in here to assure the flatness going across the entire board. So maybe I'll show you a second of that, but that's not the main point of the video. And then when that's all, the glue is all done and dry, I'll send it through the sander, and you'll get to see the finished product after it's all polished up. With a little bit of movie magic, we're at the end of the project now. Again, the main reason that I'm showing you this sort of process is so that if you are maybe a new woodworker and this is one of your first times ever gluing up new boards, you'll have the best chance possible of making sure that your project stays flat and true for many, many years to come. So as I'm talking now, I want to show you a little bit of the beginning of the rough wood and then at the end of the finished product. And again, just sort of the grain direction of how things look or are supposed to look in order to make sure that that panel stays flat. Well, my hope is if you've made it this far, it's because you've enjoyed what you've seen. If you have and you like to continue following some of the things that I'm doing, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the bell, and that will give you notifications when my videos come out. Thanks for watching.